Good morning, guys. It's Julie. Welcome back to Row & Co Farms. Today I'm in my kitchen and I'm going to be making some bone broth. I've been making bone broth for many years, but today I'm going to be making a new kind, and it is made from emu bones. I know you guys are probably like, emu bones? Why in the world would you be using that? Well, there is a reason. I recently found out that I have a condition called alpha-gal syndrome, where I can no longer eat any mammal products. And so because of that, I cannot have beef, pork, lamb, venison, rabbit, anything that is a mammal I can no longer eat, which definitely put a big hiccup in our homestead lifestyle, because we have been raising our own cattle and pigs for the last few years, along with chickens as well. But I can no longer eat that, and so for the most part I have not been cooking those things either for my family. I have been really concentrating on trying to find alternatives that I'm able to eat. So I can have poultry, which emu is basically a large form of poultry, so I can eat emu, chicken, turkey, duck, as well as seafood. So luckily I do still have a lot of options, but to replace my beef broth that I would normally have made, I'm going to be making some emu bone broth. And so I have acquired some emu bones from a farm called Amaru Hills. They specialize in emu and duck, as well as a couple of other different specialty items. So if you do have alpha-gal syndrome or are interested in emu or duck meat, check out Amaru Hills. They're a really great company. They're small and they're also a farm, and so we all like to support farmers. So check them out if you have a need for that. But let's get into this bone broth today. Let's show you how it's done. I'm putting a little bit of oil in here. Just kind of rubbing that down. Now, emu tastes remarkably a lot like beef. It does, as you can see, there's a little bit of the meat here. It's very dark and red, so it looks very similar to beef also. So when you get it ground, it looks a lot like just a regular ground beef, and so I make hamburgers from that. It's really delicious. My family almost can't tell the difference. You can tell a little bit, but not very much. I am going to sprinkle a little bit of salt on here, and then we're just going to toss them into the oven at about 450 for about 30 minutes. And into the oven they go. So these are some of the items I'm going to be adding in with my broth. These are just a few small little carrots that came out of my garden. I'm not even going to chop any of the stuff off of them. I'm just going to toss the whole thing in. These are some garlic scapes that also just came that I took out of my garden. So these are very garlicky tasting, so these will give the garlic flavor I want. We just got some celery stalks. We're not gonna chop off any of those bits. We're gonna just, use the whole thing. Same thing with the onions. Leave the skins on. They give a nice, deep, rich color to your broth. So we've got one onion there, and then these are just little leftover pieces. These are all the ends. Oh goodness, sorry about that, guys. These are all just different ends and pieces from leeks, onions, some carrot ends, and different things like that. There's some garlic there. We'll just toss all that in. So all those will just be tossed into the broth, and then we'll strain all this out when it's finished. So I'm not going to worry about any of those little papers and skins and things like that. Those are all just going to add lots of flavor into the broth. So here are the bones. They've been roasting for about 30 minutes. Ooh, that's getting hot on my finger. All right, put the bones straight into the pot here. Okay, toss all that juice and stuff in too. Now let's add all of our little bits in there. Break them up into pieces, that's fine. grapes, carrots, onions, okay, and we're going to top that off with water. So we've added everything into our pot. I'm going to go ahead and add some salt. This is some good mineral sea salt. Some people don't like to add salt to their broth, but I just prefer my broth to be salty and have that good flavor to it, so that if I wanted to just drink it plain, it would taste good right out of the container. I'm going to also add some thyme. It's one of my favorite herbs to add in. Just really makes it taste delicious. Slow cook. And we're gonna go at least 18 hours. Just let that go. I'll check on it in the morning and see how it's looking, and maybe move some of the bones around if I need to. But we're gonna let that go for a really long time so we can get all the good we can out of those bones. So at this point, guys, we had already done our 18 hours, and I did another additional 5 hours under the slow cooker. And at that point, it still wasn't quite ready. So I added 3 hours under the pressure cook method so that we could really break down the bones, and that finally worked. You can see those tiny little holes there where the heat has started to penetrate the bone and start to leach out the nutrients that are inside the bones. So I'm real happy with the way that turned out. I've already removed the large bones, and now I'm just going to use a strainer to get rid of all those other little bits and pieces. All right, let's put this broth into our jars. That looks great. You want to make sure you don't overfill. I'm going to be freezing these, so I don't want to overfill these jars or they'll crack in the freezer. You only want to use wide mouth jars in the freezer. While I'm filling jars, I think this is a good time to mention that although I made emu broth today, this recipe is good for any type of bone broth that you want to make. You can use the bones from any mammal or poultry that you choose, and you just use the same type of add-ins to create your bone broth.